Aside from the blatantly obvious lack of RFID tags, is there any difference between Elegoo's new PLA Basic refill spools and Bambu Lab's PLA Basic refill spools? Now, for the longest time, I've used Elegoo's PLA and PETG filaments. It comes in at a great price, and the cardboard spools are recyclable, so you don't end up with a bunch of empty plastic spools that you can't really do anything with. But more recently, ever since getting the P2S, I've been using Bambu's filament just because it's so much simpler to throw the filament in there. The RFID tag automatically recognizes what filament you're using, and you don't have to second guess yourself when you run upstairs to go print something out. However, during the holiday season, I was checking out some of the different websites from Elegoo to Flashforge, Sunlu, and Bambu Lab. And I came across Elegoo's website where they had PLA Basic in a refill spool. And that name sounded super familiar to me because I've been using the Bambu Lab PLA Basic filament for a while now. Obviously, Bambu has the RFID tags that automatically recognize what type of filament it is. So when you insert it into any of the AMS systems, the printer detects what it is and it automatically updates that in your slicer, the Bambu Handy app, and on the printer's screen. This is Elegoo's version of the refill spool. Looks pretty familiar, right? The only difference that I see right off the bat is Elegoo's little straps here to keep the filament contained are blue, and Bambu's, they're clear. And obviously the RFID tag is non-existent on the Elegoo. But buying these in a pack of 10 during the holidays cost me $9.23 per spool. Bambu's come in at around $11 per spool if you buy 14 or 15 of them at a time. So anything more than that, you do get a little bit more of a discount. I believe if you purchase 20 or 25 spools, you can actually get the Bambu filament for $10.99 a spool. So it's not a huge price difference, and for a lot of people, it might actually not be worth it if you rely on that RFID technology. It is super helpful, but if the filament prints just the same and you can get the Elegoo stuff for a little bit of a better price, would that make it worth it for you? I think the biggest downfall for using Elegoo spools for a lot of people is the fact that they're cardboard spools. And I've done a video recently on using cardboard spools in an AMS system. I've done it for 3,000 hours in my original AMS without very many issues. However, the plastic spools do run better in the AMS. They tend to get jammed up a little bit less than the cardboard ones. And when you're done with the refill spools, you can just twist the thing and put a new spool in it, instead of ending up with a bunch of cardboard spools piled up that you have to recycle or figure out what to do with them later on. It ends up being a little bit less wasteful, in my opinion, if you just print out a bunch of those plastic spools, or even purchase them if you don't want to print them out. And then when the filament runs out on that spool, you can just pop the spool off and replace it with a new refill spool. So I'm gonna load them up in the P2S to keep things consistent, and we're gonna use one spool of black from Bambu and one spool of black from Elegoo. Print out the exact same model, probably a Benchy and something else that I normally print out, just to compare them, see how they run on the Bambu PLA Basic settings, since Elegoo does not have printer profiles or filament profiles inside of any of these slicers, aside from maybe their own slicer. So I figured, because this test is to kind of figure out if they're the same filament or not, we're gonna use Bambu's PLA Basic settings for the black. I'm gonna leave it stock settings, not changing anything, even the bed temperature, which I tend to bump up to 65 Celsius. Their default for PLA Basic is 55, so we'll just kind of see how that goes. Now, loading the PLA Basic, again, you have your refill spools. I've printed a bunch of these out in ABS over the last couple of weeks. Loading them up, they do all have the little notch to fit over top of your Bambu spools. Elegoo also has a file for spools you can print out. Locks into place, and I mean, that's just as simple as it is doing it with the Bambu Lab ones. We have our little pull tabs that come off once the spool is in place, and then this thing is ready to load up into our printer. So I've already got some PLA Basic from Bambu loaded up into the printer here. On the touch screen, under the filament settings, we can see it automatically recognizes it as PLA. Loading up the Elegoo filament is obviously same exact procedure as loading any filament, except on the screen afterwards, we're gonna have to tell it that this is black PLA Basic. So after it's done, we've got a little question mark here because it obviously doesn't know what the filament is. So we can edit that. I'm gonna choose Bambu Lab PLA Basic in black, and we'll hit confirm. Within the printer itself, I'm gonna go into print files. We're gonna scroll down to our 3D Benchy, and we're gonna choose the Elegoo spool to start with and get this one on its way. When this is all finished up, we'll just do the exact same thing with the Bambu spool. All right, we've got 3 different prints printed out of both the Elegoo PLA Basic and the Bambu Lab PLA Basic. So again, just to make this clear, on the left side here is the Elegoo PLA Basic, and on the right is the Bambu Lab. We're gonna take a quick look at both the benchies first, and then we'll move on to the torture test and then the torture toaster, the mini torture toaster. So first up is the benchies. Again, Elegoo's on the left, Bambu's on the right, and pulling these guys off of the printer, you could not tell the difference which one was printed out of the Elegoo or the Bambu. They both look essentially the exact same. I mean, if we take a look at the sides here, pretty perfect print. I don't see any issues with that. The overhangs all look good. Taking a look at the back here, again, all of the overhangs look good. The bottom printed out nice and clean. There's really nothing to complain about with this. And same goes for the one printed with the Bambu Lab PLA Basic. There is nothing to complain about. I guess the only thing I did notice is on the Elegoo one, we did have a little bit of filament stuck to the bottom here. You can kind of see it there. The Bambu, it did not have that. But again, you wouldn't even know these were printed out of 2 different filaments if I didn't tell you they were printed out of 2 different filaments. Moving on to the torture test, my buddy Sam over at Samcraft recently used this model in his P1S versus P2S video. I thought it was a pretty neat idea. Kind of gives you an idea of how these filaments handle overhangs, and both of them, again, did pretty much the exact same thing. I will say the Elegoo, this little needle here, seems to be just slightly cleaner, but then on the Elegoo, we also have some overhangs here, if you can kind of see inside of there, that are drooping down just a little bit more than we have on the Bambu one. They both do have stringing where it was trying to bridge there, but it's just ever so slightly less on the Bambu than it was on the Elegoo. Both of these did print out these little tiny spikes there, and when I was removing this one from the printer, the 2 on the right here kind of fell off. So I just matched it on the Bambu because it wasn't the printer's fault, it wasn't the filament's fault. It was just a slip of the thumb, and I accidentally knocked into those. So that was my bad. I just wanted to make sure that both of them were even as possible. But again, nothing to complain about on the Elegoo. Both of the bridging pretty much look exactly the same. And on the Bambu, overhangs completed the exact same way. Taking a look at the back here. The Elegoo, I guess, does have a little bit of popping there. Could be due to wet filament. I'm not really gonna hold it against that. I mean, we don't see it on the Bambu here, but again, I did not dry either of these filaments before printing with them. I don't typically dry PLA anyway, but that is just something to note there. And last but not least, we have our torture toaster. Everything works as it should on the Elegoo, and everything also works as it should on the Bambu equivalent of it. Both the sides pretty much looking exactly the same here. The Bambu is slightly darker than the Elegoo PLA Basic, at least this batch was. As far as these guys go, looks like we have no movement on these first 2 here, but once we get down to slot number 3, we can start to move these little pieces here, and bottom looks great. Top surface of the Elegoo one is slightly better than the top surface on the Bambu. You can see it's a little bit under extruded here. So Elegoo definitely takes the win for this one. Again, both these printed with the Bambu Lab PLA Basic print settings. Moving over to this one, we can see we have movement on the second piece all the way up until The 5th piece there, can't really break that one loose. So again, a little bit more under extruded on the Bambu Lab one, which is probably what led to this moving as well. The only other thing that I notice, aside from this slight color difference, is this is super clean. There's virtually no color shifting or banding that you can see as the print goes up. When we look at the Bambu Lab one, I don't know if it's gonna come out on camera, but you can kind of see some VFAs that aren't actually really VFAs in the sense that you can feel them. It's just almost like the pigment in the filament wasn't quite perfect on this one. So you can kind of see some little white lines here as it kind of moves up each of the layers. Maybe that's a little bit more evident on this side here, but I did just want to point that out. Aside from that though, both of them work as they should, using the same exact print settings. So this one's kind of going to be up to you. If you need the RFID tag, or if you prefer the RFID tag for automatic filament detection, obviously you are going to have to use the Bambu Lab filament. If you don't need that RFID tag, or maybe you're not even using a Bambu Lab machine, you just kind of enjoy the colors or the way the filament prints with a Bambu Lab, I would say go with the Elegoo in that case. Now, to get the discount pricing, you do have to buy 10 spools, and it was also on sale for the holidays for around $9.23 per spool. It's a little bit more than that, closer to the $9.99 per spool range when their holiday sale isn't going on. So that does bring it up much closer to the price of the Bambu PLA Basic. To get the $10.99 per spool on the Bambu Lab, I believe you need to order at least 20 spools. You can get it for around $11.99 per spool if you order 14 spools at a time, whereas you only need to order 10 to get this at the $10-ish price range. So it's not a huge price difference. Both of them print essentially exactly the same, as we could see in the test results, aside from a little bit of under extrusion on this Bambu Lab version and the slight color difference there. If I mix these prints up, I guess removing these two, if I mix these black prints up here, you would not be able to tell which one was printed out of which filament. Even the color pigment is essentially exactly the same. I mean, I can't see a difference from the naked eye between these two filaments. So that one's kind of going to be up to you. I just thought since Bambu was out of stock when I went to order some filament, that I would give the Elegoo a try. I can't say I'm any more pleased or any less pleased with how it turned out. Again, slightly cheaper, but if you are in the market for some filament and you enjoy the Elegoo brand but hate those cardboard spools, give these refill spools a try. I will have links to both the Bambu Lab PLA Basic and the Elegoo PLA Basic refill spools down in the description below. If you've tried either the Bambu PLA Basic or the Elegoo PLA Basic in the refill spools, be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you had any sort of different results or outcomes than what I have here. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up to let the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy this type of content. If you want to see more, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you want to watch another video, I've got another one queued up for you over there.